Greetings, brave adventurers. My name is FoxyBard, and I have returned with that which you crave, and I dread. I don't really dread these. I kind of like making them, honestly. Even if, well, they're RPG horror stories. Bad things happen. Although, in this collection, I have yet another one that I don't actually think qualifies as a horror story. I'll let you decide. That's engagement bait. Speaking of engagement bait, if you like the video, it helps out the channel a whole bunch. If you subscribe, that helps out the channel even more. And now I've done my introduction call to action, so we can get into the video. Let's go! Look, if you didn't like my style of humor, you would have stopped watching me a long time ago. It only gets worse from here. Our first story today comes from the user Jopers, and is titled 15-minute flashback cutscene for NPC death. So on its face, that doesn't sound that bad, but, yeah, it delivers. You'll see. Tale start. I don't think it was anything grandiose to be called a horror story, but it was definitely uncomfortable. We were playing an RPG called Ordum Paranormal, a mystery and paranormal investigation system heavily focused on combat, something like Dungeons & Dragons with Lovecraftian elements. The players take on the role of agents of a secret organization that fights against supernatural forces. See, you don't have to homebrew 5e to be Lovecraft. There exist so many systems for that. You play the other systems. I promise. They're good. They're fun. It's worth your time. From the beginning of the campaign, the atmosphere was tense. 6 agents, complete strangers to each other, were sent to a remote town in the US to investigate a series of disappearances and a possible dark cult. We were already in the 7th session, and the last 3 had been a disaster. There were frequent arguments between players, the atmosphere at the table was always heavy, and we'd faced 2 near TPKs. We only survived by sheer luck. Then, the tragedy happened. Place your bets now. What's the tragedy? It's been a while since I read this originally, so I've actually forgotten during the recording. This will be fun for me too. One of the players was infected by a kind of blood-borne curse virus, which amplified his emotions to an absurd degree. The character, who was already naturally withdrawn and hostile, became an aggressive lone wolf. Okay, so the lone wolf thing, that's a complete myth. That wolves don't do that. A lone wolf is a dead wolf. That's just not... Sorry. Threatening to kill anyone who came near him. At one point, he even attacked my character. Our priority shifted to finding the cult's laboratory to try to cure him before he turned into some kind of blood beast. We headed to a hospital, pretending to be accompanying one of our members, an elderly man who needed a consultation. While trying to explore the place, I ended up encountering a terrifying enemy in the hospital's empty cafeteria, a zombie ghost child capable of permanently draining a player's sanity, similar to the Call of Cthulhu system. Panicked, my character grabbed the radio to warn the others, but somehow the frequency was tuned to the hospital's security team. Our frequency was private. No one knows how this happened. When I realized it, I tried to improvise a coded message that only my teammates would understand. Emergency. Pizza. The table laughed at how ridiculous it was, but one of the security guards completely misinterpreted it. He thought it was code for a terrorist attack. No one knows why to this day, and from that moment on, everything fell apart. We managed to capture the zombie child without being noticed, but right afterward, the GM told us there was a security camera in the area, something we only realized after we had already secured the child. A few moments later, the security guard who was with me decided to check the footage, convinced that he needed to find the terrorist. My character tried to calm him down, convincing him There was no terrorist, but he completely ignored me. Time ran out. Just as we were about to leave, one of the security guards found us in the parking lot and opened fire. One of them instantly took down one of our allies. In desperation, my character cast a spell against them, and the GM narrated that the security guards were completely vaporized by the explosion of energy. Once again, another security camera had caught everything. You know, hospitals are places where security cameras are actually pretty common. So this does make sense. Whoops! And then came the part that stuck with me. My girlfriend, whom I had invited to play, was new to RPGs. At the beginning of the next session, the GM started narrating the story of a woman none of us knew. He described her life and that of her husband, a man named Nicholas, who had served in the war and struggled with many problems but deeply loved his wife. The GM asked my girlfriend to play the role of this woman. Uh-oh. Without fully understanding what was happening, she agreed. Uh-oh. What followed was over 15 minutes of an incredibly uncomfortable scene. The GM meticulously described the couple's relationship, incorporating small details that my girlfriend and I actually used in real life. Oh boy, okay. Pinky promises, affectionate nicknames, little intimate interactions. Then came the dialogue between the narrator and her. How she missed him, how she watched him leave for war, and how she feared he would never return, how he finally came back and found a job as a security guard in a hospital, bringing some stability to their lives. And finally, how, on that specific morning, he woke up late for work. The exact day she had planned to tell him she was pregnant. Oh my god. Okay, not only is this super tropey, hackneyed, like, bad storytelling, it's bad storytelling, but to do it to the, oh man, don't do this. And then the scene ended, because Nicholas was one of the NPCs my character had killed the night before. Am I being too sensitive? Because I think this is weird. Tail end. It's a little weird. Okay, so I do think that just generically in a vacuum, showing sort of the consequences for player actions, and especially in like a dark and gritty sounding setting like this, showing that even if you do something that is in the moment the right thing to do, it can just be shitty. That part is okay. What makes it extremely weird is making your girlfriend do it and incorporating real life aspects of your relationship with her, because that's too much. That's taking it into a direction that isn't related to the game, which is where it crosses the line into extremely weird. And I don't like it. I don't like it. Don't do that. Have consequences. That's cool. I like that part. But don't do this connecting it, somehow looping it into your real life relationship and forcing your real life relationship to act it out. Come on. Okay. Or maybe I'm off base and it's fine and I've just been single for way too long. Who knows? It's probably like 70-30. Like 70 weird, 30 me just being weird and single. We'll go with that. Next story. Our second story today comes from the user DowntownLog497 and is less of a story and more of a, am I the asshole for building a control mage? No. I mean, short version is just no. That's a legitimate way to play. It's also a way to play that I like. I like control mages. They're very fun. let's see how someone gets guilt-tripped. Hello everyone. Recently a campaign ended and I have mixed feelings about it. I'm trying to be better, but at the same time, I don't feel like I'm entirely at fault, which is why I'm here asking if I'm the a-hole. Which, hey, it's a reasonable question to ask. Sometimes you're just not sure, or sometimes people are lying to you. Starting out, the system we were playing was Pathfinder 1st Edition. Yes! Specifically the Spheres of Power version. I don't really like Spheres of Power. Pathfinder 1st Edition is a little bonkers to begin with, and it makes it even more bonkers. It just feels unnecessary to me. But whatever, which lets players kit out their characters with talents, so martial types can do more than full attack/charge on rounds, and casters have new spells to work with, but makes them specialize over something like wizards/clerics, who have a book of spells to pull from. So, wizards do that anyway, clerics don't. Clerics are a little nutty, but wizards do that. To summarize, a level 5 character in Spheres usually has a lot of the same features as a level 10 to 12 character would have via feats in regular Pathfinder, and it'd go from there. See, that's why I don't like it. I think getting new class features slowly over time by leveling up is good. It makes it feel like your character's actually growing from level to level. It's nice. But Spheres of Power has a lot of defenders, and I kinda get it. Sometimes power fantasy is fun. When the campaign started, the DM asked for us to not build strong characters. Okay, then why are you using Spheres of Power? Spheres of Power notoriously makes pretty broken characters. And focus on having fun, since it'd be more exploration-focused than combat. The whole party consisted of 3 melee DPS and 2 casting debuff supports, me being one of them. No one was playing tank or healer. That's fine in Pathfinder. It's fine. 2 of us could do healing out of combat, and 1 of us was good at restoring it across the party, but no one could out-heal the damage we'd normally take during fights. That's normal. You're supposed to avoid the damage and heal it later. That's how Pathfinder 1st Edition is balanced. In combat, healing is not a focus. The GM ran combat like Pathfinder Society, where there'd usually be 3 to 4 consecutive encounters with no long rests in between. Combat always started with all the party members within 5 feet of each other, bosses got to go first and had multiple turns in the initiative. That's not how Pathfinder Society works. That's how 5e works. In fact, in Pathfinder Society, it is the most fair it can possibly be to everyone involved, which is the point. Whatever. A dragon with 1d4 breath recharge would get 2 rounds counted instead of 1. Likewise, if they were debuffed for X rounds, 1 turn counted as a round for them. Again, that's just not how Pathfinder Society worked. Mobs outnumbered us roughly 2 to 1 with 80 to 100 HP each, and enemies were usually in tactical positions against wherever we started while having AoE attacks ready. People who did well on the initiative managed to get out of the splash zone usually, but otherwise everyone took unavoidable damage out of the gate. By the end of most dungeons, we were alive with less than a quarter HP and no heals left. Okay, that's called proper balancing, but it sounds like it was done in kind of the wrong way. Like, if the party is alive and used all their resources, that's good balancing. The whole campaign, we only got to loot enemies twice, and received around 20k gold by level 8 as well. Again, nothing like Pathfinder Society. Pathfinder Society sticks pretty closely to wealth by level. This is a GM being adversarial and making the campaign much, much harder than it needs to be, probably on purpose. My character was an elf druid who focused more on nature magic, using spells that would affect areas to debuff or immobilize enemies, while the animal companions or summons would try soaking some of the damage, and DPS members did their part. Other than that, my damage was a 5d6 fireball to chip at the mobs, and an air geyser that would yeet enemies straight up for fall damage on a failed save. 8d6. Okay, I know that sounds like a lot. It's not. 8d6 average is, I'm just going to do this in my head, and you're going to laugh, 28 damage. And that's to one target. The marshals are going to out-DPS that in, like, an instant. That's one attack for a decently built martial character. Unfortunately, the campaign devolved into an arms race from there. Adversarial GM. For example, I'd put out a spell like Pit that mobs would have to get out of or go around, and now most enemies had the ability to teleport, fly, climb, or burrow out of it. See, this is why you cast Hungry Pit, and then they're stuck in there because the pit's trying to eat them. I love Hungry Pit, it's a great spell. The most contentious spell was an animated tree that I could create anywhere in 200 feet, give the ability to move, and attack/debuff, which gave the party a tank. The best thing it did was the ability to taunt an enemy, so hostile actions could only target it for a few rounds, while it could also opt to do no damage at all on hits, and cause the enemy to be fatigued/exhausted until they spent a full round clearing the condition. Yeah, that's about right. Actually, kind of on the weekend as far as CC goes in Pathfinder. Though, with it being its own creature, it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. This is a good spell. Skipping to the last session, we were fighting 2 dragons that also had spheres features. I mean, fair is fair. You get them, so do the NPCs. Although, well, dragon number 1 is a blaster caster, so bad, and dragon number 2 is a martial type who would lock you in place and perpetually knock you prone if you tried moving around it or missed an attack against it. Good. Halfway through combat, the DM locked me inside a hurt box that I couldn't leave, and others couldn't get through on a corner of the map with the blaster dragon. Trying to survive, I managed to barely stay out of melee reach, grounded the dragon that had been flying until that point, held it in place, and put it in a situation where it had to pass concentration checks to try throwing more fireballs at me. In response, it somehow kept rolling 1s on the breath recharge time behind the GM screen, and was hitting me twice with breath attacks every round after that. Again, this is just cheating. It is impressive that you were passing all of your spell resistance checks. Most decently leveled dragons have spell resistance. Seeing that happen, dragon number 2 flew into the hurt box, ignoring the tree that had taunted it until that point, and the rest of the party to double tap my already unconscious character so they actually died. Then the round after that, both the dragons died since they were constantly provoking attacks of opportunity from the rest of the party to get at me up to that point. So now it's bad tactics for petty reasons? I guess that does nerf the cheating and broken nonsense. One of the players in the party told me that I made the fight less fun and interesting for them because of what I was doing. No, the GM did that. He also told me that I made things harder for the GM and him since they had to balance around my character. The player is the GM's boyfriend, so there could be some bias. There is, but I still value their opinion enough to write a thread here and ask. So, am I the asshole? Tail end. Easy answer, no, you're not. You built a character within the rules, using spells that were allowed within the systems you were given. Period. That other player, the GM's boyfriend, was absolutely just forwarding the GM's private DMs to them in order to complain. Probably not DMs. They're in a relationship. I bet you they're real life conversations. I think I need to spend less time online and be less single. Not the point. You are not at fault here. Like, the GM absolutely could have included some enemies that would be harder for your spells to target. Like constructs in particular can be a problem because they're immune to mind-affecting effects. There's all sorts of things that a competent, good GM can easily do, but this GM seemed like, honestly, an asshole, to use the framing of the question. They told everyone to build low-power characters, and then put you in a incredibly difficult, punishing campaign with spheres of power. I'm still hung up on that. Why would you ask for a low-power campaign and then use spheres? That's like asking your players to break your game, which is the point of spheres. It's fun for that. It's not fun for something balanced. Apart from being adversarial, this GM seemed like they wanted to win, which I guess is kind of the definition of adversarial, but they really wanted to win the game. They wanted to be the victor in combat, even if, like, that would just end the campaign. Well, how is that fun? You want your players to win, but you want to give them a challenge. This particular GM just wanted to win. Or, ooh, hang on. Maybe people were upset, and by people I mean the GM and their boyfriend, because it was you who had the spotlight and not the boyfriend. Even though it sounds like you didn't really have the spotlight, you don't do much damage, and you just had some control spells to allow the marshals to shine better. That's the point of playing a control mage. It's why it's fun. This one confuses and frustrates me because I've played a lot of Pathfinder, and this is just not how Pathfinder works. I was actually kind of intending for this story to be the one that's not so much a horror story, but it is. I mean, it's technically not because it's an Am I the Asshole? So, there you go. There's your, this is not a horror story on a technicality. Yeah, next story! Our final story for today is by the user Impossibly Probable 59, and it is entitled, How I Got Kicked Out of My First D&D Group for Refusing to Date the DM. Hey. RPGs are not a dating app. Go to Tinder or Hinge. Hinge is better than Tinder. Tinder sucks. Go to Hinge if that's what you're looking for. Which isn't to say that relationships can't happen through RPGs, but it should not be your focus for playing them. That is not the point. I'm getting ahead of myself, kind of burying the lead here. Tale start. So, at the time this story took place, I was in high school. I, 16F, was approached by a guy, 18M, asking if I wanted to join his D&D group, after he overheard me talking to a friend about D&D. I went to a small school, so I knew most people. He seemed pretty harmless. So this would be a senior and probably a sophomore? Maybe a junior. That's not the worst thing. They're both at the same high school. I guess it's not that weird. It was a group of 6, including me and the DM, so 5 players. They were all 17 or 18, and I was, you guessed it, the only girl in the group. If I had a drinking game for these, which I don't, you'd die. You'd take a shot here. We played at the DM's house, and I didn't see any crazy red flags initially. Stop. You being the only girl is probably a red, especially with you being the youngest and the only girl. That's kind of a red flag. It's not a huge one, but it's one that should definitely get your awareness up. After a few games together, things got weird. The party were interrogating a woman. I can't remember exactly why, but it was something related to a smuggling ring, and everyone was insisting that my character be the one to do the interrogation, because I was the only girl, and it would have been weird for them to do it. That's not entirely wrong, but when I tried persuading the NPC to give up the information we needed, she refused, and the DM told me that she wouldn't give up any information unless we tortured her. That's bad. Torture doesn't work. That genuinely, it does not work. stop using it. I told him I really didn't want to do that, and he said I was being a bad player for disrespecting him as the DM. Everyone kept pushing me, and I ended up excusing myself from the table, and the DM eventually moved on and let someone else do the rest of the interrogation. That was the first major red flag that I wouldn't enjoy playing at the table, but I really wanted to play a game, and I was an anxious teenager who really wanted friends who shared my interests. So I persevered. As we do, it's hard. This is the point you should have left, to be clear, but you're 16. I understand. Apart from this, there were a lot of small moments that made me uncomfortable. Male NPCs hit on my character every other session, and the DM would not stop trying to get me to describe myself harming people. Okay, it's a fetish at this point. This wasn't just him wanting realistic combat, as he didn't ask anyone else this. At this point, I'm convinced it was some sort of kink/fetish. Yeah, that's what yeah, exactly. I told him multiple times that I was uncomfortable with that level of graphic violence. He'd back off after a while, then do the exact same thing again next session. What is it about being in the GM seat that makes people think they can just air their kinks out in front of everyone without consent? Stop it. Get some help. The DM's mom started inviting me to stay for dinner after games, which I thought was very kind of her. My home life wasn't great, so it was nice to have an adult who was nice to me. Turns out, she was only nice to me because she thought I was dating her son. Oh no, bad parenting too? After a few months of weekly games, the DM asked me to stay behind after our game and asked me on a date. There it is. We all knew this was coming. I was completely stunned. I was very open about being a lesbian. My girl! Good for you. And I had no idea why he thought I'd be even remotely interested in him. I told him I didn't like him like that and tried to leave. When he told me that if I didn't agree to go on a date with him, he'd kick me out of the group. That's the point where you save him the trouble and leave yourself. Holy shit. I asked him, "Did you only invite me to this game to hit on me?" And this man literally said, "Yeah, why else would I invite a girl?" I ditched the group immediately after that. Good. And didn't play D&D for 2 years. That's fair. I picked it up again this year, and recounting this story to my new group reminded me of how messed up it was. Tail and girl, that's fair. And I'm glad you learned the lesson eventually that no D&D is better than bad D&D. That remains true. I know, we all repeat it, we're broken records, but it's just correct. And, I mean, this guy was also pretty immature, because he was only 18. Every 18-year-old is like 5 versions of an idiot. I hope he grew in, I guess, the last 2 years, though chances are probably not. I can hope. So, look, like I said at the start, RPGs are not a dating app. They're just not. Yes, on occasion, you'll meet someone playing games, and you'll hit it off with them, and things will be wonderful, and you'll develop a relationship. I have heard plenty of stories of people who met playing an RPG, and then ended up getting married later, and are like still together 30 or 40 years later. Amazing. But that's uncommon. And it's especially uncommon if you try to force it as a straight man with a lesbian. And by uncommon, I mean kind of impossible. Stop. Anyway, the man needs more positive female figures in his life, and actually, so does OP, and it sounds kind of like you found some, which is great. Good for you. Good job, OP. It took you a while to get there, but you made all the right decisions in the end. I'm proud of you. That will do it for Foxy today. Have you noticed that I talk way longer when I'm delving into, like, game mechanics than when I'm giving more generic advice? I suppose that's the proof that this is, in fact, a TTRPG channel more than it is a generic advice channel, because, yeah. Also, I've played a whole bunch of TTRPGs over the years, and I like them a lot, and, say what you will, but the rules matter to me. They do. If you aren't gonna follow the rules, what's the point in even having them? There are, well, I guess you could just play I roll dice and we go off of vibes, which is, I suppose, the purest form of role-playing. Could be fun. Anyway, don't forget to like the video if you liked the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet done so. Both of those things really do help me out. They're wonderful, and you're wonderful for doing them. Thank you. If you didn't do them, I mean, I can't force you. It'd be nice. Please? Please? For me? Alright, I'm done begging. Instead of begging, I'm gonna talk about the people who pay me money to do this, because I love them the most. And that's my supporters over on patreon.com/FoxyBard. They are probably the sole reason that I'm able to keep doing what I do, and I love doing this, so thank you. Genuinely, thank you. If you want to join this list of names and also receive my undying thank yous, do it. To go over to patreon.com/FoxyBard and you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. It's $1, come on. You can also sign up for more than that if that's what you prefer. Patrons get videos early and ad-free. So one last time, because hearing things 3 times makes them stick in your brain, patreon.com/FoxyBard. Well, now that we're all finished here today, I think my next task is probably going to be, and I know this is going to shock all of you, building a character for an upcoming 5e campaign? Foxy, are you feeling okay? No. No, I'm not. Nah. It'll be fine. Bye!